Lords, I support both amendments in this grouping. Amendments 14 and 21 are important because they are about aligning our climate and environmental targets with our trade agreements. My Lords, I spoke on these issues during the committee stage. I would like to reinforce that these amendments will enable us to be an effective environmental leader. I would like to commend the government for their increasing attention and leadership on environmental issues, which will not just protect our health, but also drive our economic growth. This has been shown in the recent spending review and 10-point plan. My Lords, these are positive amendments which will help us to have a proper green industrial revolution. My Lords, in the late 18th century, the Industrial Revolution began in the United Kingdom, and by 1830s, it had spread to Europe and United States. I hope that the Green Industrial Revolution can do the same, and UK can become a true leader in the green growth. At the committee stage, my noble friend the Minister said that this government have done a huge amount to protect and improve the environment. I completely agree that they have done so. However, this should not mean that we sit on our laurels. Amendment 14 and 21 will help drive our green agenda forward. Amendment 14 means that future trade agreements cannot be signed or approved if they are not consistent with our climate change obligations. This includes being compliant with 2008 Climate Change Act and our international obligation to tackle climate change under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This amendment will help us reach these emission targets by making sure that we have considered the impact of trade agreements on the climate. For example, subsection 4 of the amendment states that a minister would have to make a statement confirming that any agreement does not give rise to a net increase in greenhouse gas emissions. By doing so, we are not only sending the message that we take emissions seriously, but we are helping to reduce our environmental impact. My Lords, I welcome clause 4B, which means that if a trade agreement does lead to increased net emissions, then detailed mitigation measures must be laid before Parliament. So if we are at risk of emitting too much, then we have the chance to put it right, not just for the benefit of our targets, but for our own health and well-being as well. Given the UK was one of the major economies to set a net zero goal, Amendment 14 means we can probably commit to achieving this target and be a true leader in the run-up to our COP26 presidency. My Lords, at the Virtual Climate Ambition Summit 2020 last weekend, the United Nations Secretary General asked for nations to make their promise of a net zero world a reality. During the summit, the Prime Minister announced the UK's ambitious targets to cut emissions by at least 68% by 2030, and this is the first time we have put forward our national climate plan separate from the European Union. Furthermore, in the 6th Carbon Budget Report released last week, the Climate Change Committee said we need early action and key policy building blocks to reach net zero by 2050. This trade bill is a chance to do so and to shape our own trade policy. Amendment 14 allows us to be explicit about where we stand on slowing down the rate of climate change, and this amendment should be supported. My lords, the risks to the environment from poor trade policies are significant, but trade can play an important role in reducing our environmental impact. This is also something government said in their 25-year environment plan, that environmental sustainability should be at the very heart of global production and trade. Amendment 21 means that future international trade agreements can only be ratified and implemented if their provisions are consistent with the achievement of our environmental and climate change commitments. Again, my lords, this is a positive amendment that will help us what we set out to do and will not hinder us. I'm glad that Section 5 of the amendment outlines such a range of commitments and agreements that are relevant to this amendment, including those to protect biodiversity and natural capital and improve environmental quality, which has a direct impact on our quality of life. This is not a limited list, so any new or updated commitments will also be relevant. Amendment 21 also requires reports to be made to Parliament. The first is a report explaining whether or to what extent the provisions of an international trade agreement are consistent with achieving our environmental or climate change commitments and maintaining protections outlined in subsection 3B. A trade agreement is only eligible for signature or ratification once the report has been laid before Parliament. This is very important in protecting our health and environment by making sure sustainability is not an afterthought. The amendment also requires a report to be made to Parliament within 12 months of ratifying an agreement or making regulations, assessing its impact on our commitments. This shows we are committed to being green leaders and we are taking our impact on the environment seriously. Furthermore, these reports would incentivize deals and stimulate greater collaboration, for instance, on developing green technologies. My lords, we have a great potential in advancing offshore wind during the growth, offshore wind driving the growth of the hydrogen sector and accelerating the shift to zero emission vehicles. Amendment 21 will enable us to grow the market for low carbon goods and provide a level playing field for British businesses because our industries would not be undermined by foreign industries who do not meet our standards. My lords, now we are leaving the European Union. We should, of course, control our own green agenda, but we need to ensure that our trade agreements support us in doing so. As a businessman, I can see that supporting amendments 14 and 21 is a sensible business decision, and the Order Great Group, which represents many major businesses, has also showed their support. For instance, the Climate Change Committee has showed that by 2030, the market for low carbon goods will be more than £1 trillion a year. More and more frequently, consumers in the UK are considering the environmental impact of their purchases. Isn't it the time that we should make this a key part of our trade agreements? Together, Amendment 40 and 21 can strengthen our economic competitiveness and truly make us a global leader in the environmental field. I know that the government has said it is committed to protecting the environment and mitigating climate change. But I'd like to say again that these amendments will allow them to do so. My lords, I think that these are fair amendments, and I hope my Northern Minister can consider supporting them. Thank you.